Mrs. Weatherby was delighted to receive a morning call from her only surviving brother, but for the first half-hour of his visit, she was granted no opportunity to do more than exchange a few commonplaces with him over the heads of her vociferous offspring. Sir Gareth Ludlow had arrived in Mount Street just as the schoolroom party, comprising Miss Anna, a lively damsel within a year of her debut, Miss Elizabeth, and Master Philip were returning from a promenade in the park under the aegis of their governess. No sooner did these delicately nurtured children catch sight of their uncle's tall, elegant figure than they threw to the winds every precept of gentility so carefully instilled into their heads by Miss Felbridge, and with piercing shrieks of "Uncle Gary! Uncle Gary!" raced helter-skelter down the street to engulf Sir Gareth on their doorstep. By the time Miss Felbridge, clucking but indulgent, had overtaken them, the butler was holding open the door, and Sir Gareth was being borne into the house by his enthusiastic young relatives. He was being pelted with questions and confidences, his eldest niece hanging affectionately on one arm, and his youngest nephew trying to claim his attention by tugging violently at the other. But he disengaged himself for long enough to offer his hand to Miss Felbridge, saying with the smile which never failed to set her heart fluttering in her chaste bosom, "How do you do? Don't scold them. It is quite my fault, though why I should have this shocking effect upon them I can't conceive. Are you quite well again? You were suffering all the discomfort of a bad attack of rheumatism when we last met." Miss Felbridge blushed, thanked and disclaimed, thinking that it was just like dear Sir Gareth to remember such an unimportant thing as the governess's rheumatism. Any further interchange was cut short by the arrival on the scene of Mr. Lee Weatherby, who erupted from the library at the back of the house, exclaiming, "Is that Uncle Gary? Oh, by Jove, sir, I'm devilish glad to see you. There's something I particularly wish to ask you." The whole party then swept Sir Gareth upstairs to the drawing-room, all talking at the tops of their voices, and thus deaf to a half-hearted attempt on Miss Felbridge's part to restrain her charges from bursting in upon their mamma in this very irregular fashion. It would have been useless to have persisted, of course. The young Weatherbys, from Lee, undergoing the rigours of coaching to enable him to embark on a university career later in the year, to Philip, wrestling with pothooks and hangers, were unanimous in giving it as their considered opinion that nowhere was there to be found a more admirable uncle than Sir Gareth. An attempt to whisk the younger members off to the schoolroom could only have resulted in failure, or, at the best, in a fit of prolonged sulks. In the well-chosen words of Mr. Lee Weatherby, Sir Gareth was the most bang-up fellow that ever drew breath. A noted Corinthian, he was never too high in the instep to show a nephew aspiring to dandyism how to arrange his neckcloth. Master Jack Weatherby, unconcerned with such fopperies as this, spoke warmly of his open-handedness and entire comprehension of the more urgent needs of young gentlemen enduring the privations of life at Eton College. Miss Anna, by no means out yet, knew no greater source of joy and pride than to be taken up to sit beside him in his curricle for a turn or two round the park, the envy, she was convinced, of every other, less favoured damsel. As for Miss Elizabeth and Master Philip, they regarded him as a fount of such dizzy delights as visits to Astley's amphitheatre or a grand display of fireworks, and could perceive no fault in him. They were not singular. Very few people found fault with Gareth Ludlow. Watching him, as he contrived, while displaying over and over again for the edification of little Philip the magical properties of his repeating watch, to lend an ear to the particular problem exercising Lee's mind, Mrs. Weatherby thought that you would be hard put to find a more attractive man, and wished, as she had done 1,000 times before, that she could discover some bride for him lovely enough to drive out of his heart the memory of his dead love. Heaven knew that she had spared no pains during the 7 years that had elapsed since Clarissa's death to accomplish this end. She had introduced to his notice any number of eligible females, several of them as witty as they were beautiful, but she had never been able to detect in his grey eyes so much as a flicker of the look that had warmed them when they had rested on Clarissa Lincoln.